lots of barbed wire fencing. And I've seen Night and Fog. It kind of reminded me of Night and Fog. But since you were there, can you share about your experience there? I'm sure it must have been a pretty horrifying experience for you just be there. So can you share more of it?
Actually, it was horrifying experience for me to see that if this was happening in Europe and still a lot of people kept quiet in Europe. A lot of people knew what was happening in Germany. It's not that what came to be known as allies got to know of all these later. It was only when they actually started marching into France and they were about to capture Paris that the War One really, of course, broke out also because of the Austrian-Hungarian issue. Because of the French-German past of the World War One. I was more horrified by what the British were doing in India at the same time. I was more horrified by what the colonialists were doing in other countries at the same time, as was what Germans were doing in Poland, and British were fighting against them during the World War II. I was more horrified by that, honestly. I was also horrified by the fact that how Auschwitz has been turned now in the present day into a cultural industry where tourists are coming and visiting it, and how I was horrified by how one of the gas chambers was being renovated for tourist visits. I was horrified by the fact that it was an open grave and it was not allowed to be erased from the memory, which I thought was more for the political reason rather than really honoring or remembering such a tragedy that occurred in Europe. Of course, Europeans have their own complex relationship with Holocaust, but I was frankly more horrified by, okay, so this was happening here and something was happening back at home in my place or where I come from in India as well. But what really got me was, and what really affected me was when I went into the bunkers where people were kept and I saw the scratchings of people with nails. They have written things like, I will not die, I love this person, my children are these, please remember us, and what they have written with perhaps with their nails. There were wooden benches and wooden beds, and they had scratched with their nails their names and things like destroy it, we are being destroyed, and things like that. That's actually what really got to me. Yes, there were many barbed wires still, and a lot of the entire camp is now being turned into a tourist site where a lot of people visit, and sometimes they actually, there are two parts of it, Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II. So in Auschwitz I, they actually take you through the entire experience as a tourist. You go to the gas chamber, they show you this is how people were burned, and this is how this was done. So you feel this turned into a kind of a tourist visitor site where actually, honestly, you don't really feel anything, except for, the response that you may have because you know that you're going to Auschwitz, so it already has some kind of history attached to it. So the emotional response that you have of that place is really constructed for you already, rather than what you feel there. But yes, there are several barbed wires, and actually it's a big camp. Walking around the camp itself takes a whole day. And you wonder that how did people here were actually made to go around in circles and run around the camp? It's a huge, huge camp, and one marvels, and it's surrounded by beautiful mountains. So it's an ironic, it's a sad sight to be in.